Ben from Snows here, folks. Today showing you how to set up and pack away this Zempire Pro TL V2 air pole family camping tent.
Hit it.
This impressively spacious family camping tent features single point inflation, has multiple quick release deflation taps for easy pack up. It can easily be set up and packed away by just one person. Before we dive into this product, there is loads more content like this on our YouTube channel, so make sure you like and subscribe and you'll get notified of all of our latest content. Now let's jump in. This here is the Zempire Pro TL V2 tent in front of me, all packed up. This is an air tent, so inside this bag here is the poles, the inner, everything you need, including the pump to set this up. So you can see, compared to a lot of traditional tents, being an air tent doesn't have those long pole sections in it. Rolls up to sort of a fatter, shorter sort of package, I suppose, which makes it more suitable for vehicles that are a bit limited on size, or you don't have a long space for, like on roof racks, for those longer poles in larger tents. I'm showing you how to set it up and pack it away today. As it sits here now, it weighs around about 34 kilos, measures about 80, just over 80 centimeters by about 50 centimeters in diameter, depending on how you pack it up, but it is in an oversized carry bag, so you've got a bit of extra space in here, extra length as well, so it fits back in the bag easily. I'm gonna start by showing you what comes in the kit. So this is what is in the bag. So contained in this lump of fabric here is the inner, the poles, the outer, everything you need to pitch the actual tent. We've also got a little fiberglass pole here, and that's just for a weather protected awning over one of the doors. You do get a couple of straps, they can just go aside, but that's for securing it all for transport when you pack it away again afterwards. A bag with some guy ropes and a whole heap of pegs in it, reasonable pegs as well, so you've got more than enough pegs in there to set it up. And you also get double action pump here. Now this is what you're going to use to set the tent up. This requires a little bit of assembly when you get it. There's a valve, this is for, one end will go into the tent, the other end will attach to the pump. So the tent end has got this little screw collar on it, and we can put that in place just by locking it in like so, a bit of a twist just to lock it in place so that this little nut locks in place. And then this needs to go between the hose and the pump, and it's quite easy to work out which way around. We've got male connector on here, isn't going to go into the male connector there, so that's got to lock into place in here. I might turn that upside down so you can see what I'm doing. You just see with a twist that will lock into place, and the same on the pump here. Push this in like this and lock it into place, and you can probably remove this when you pack it away because that's going to be hard to roll it up inside the tent. So this has got a PSI valve and also a blow off valve here, so when it reaches a certain PSI it redirects the air out of here so you can't overinflate the poles. And they all come in their own little carry bags here. So the first thing we need to do is I'm going to put this aside. We're going to spread the tent out, orient it correctly. Now we can tell which way the front is by these lighter colors, and we've also got sort of PVC panels for windows and stuff. On this end of the tent here, and the back end is an all sort of dark brown up there. I want the tent to face to my right here, so I'm going to spin it around, and then I'm just going to put 4 pegs in to start with just to secure it. And that's on the corners of where the floor finishes. So we can see this is the corner of the floor material here. Going to put a peg in here. As you put these in the corners, just loosen this top strap a little bit to give the top layer of the tent a little bit of room to move. We'll tighten that a little bit later. Now we're at a point where we can start inflating the tent, or just about anyway. There are these ports here that we need to be conscious of, and these are deflation ports. So we inflate from one port and deflate from all of these ports here. Before we start pumping, we need to make sure these are closed. If we leave it open, the air we're pumping in is going to keep coming out here. So flick these around so they're all closed, so they cross along like this. So there's one here, there's another one just a little further along here, just below our inflation port. So this is for inflation, this is a deflation port. And if we have a look up the tent, there's 2 more of those deflation ports along there. We need to make sure they're all in the closed position. From here, we can start to pump the tent up. Now we do that all through this valve here. Now I'll just take this valve apart here to show you all the sections that it's made up of. So this is the valve that goes straight into the air tube inside there. Got a middle section here, which has got a little one-way valve on the bottom. So as we pump air in, it's not going to escape, and then a cap over the top. To inflate it, we need to put this middle section into the air pole there. And then we grab our pump. This is the hose to the pump. We've got the little collar here, and this end of the pump screws onto the valve here. Just be conscious that you're not cross-threading it as you screw it on, and just do it up firmly. It doesn't need to be really tight, just firmly. We're now at a point where we can start inflating the tent. Now this is a two-way pump. It's got a little switch here where you can do double action or single action. Double action means it delivers air on both the upstroke and the downstroke. And we're going to pump this up to the point that we want this gauge here to reach between 7 and 9 psi. The needle won't stay in place, it'll move up and down as we pump it, but we want to just see on the either upstroke or the downstroke this needle reaching in between this sort of range here. On a hot day, aim for about 7 psi so that as the temperature increases, the pressure inside the poles are going to increase up to 9, and on a cold day you can go right up to 9 psi. Now I will mention that it does take a lot of pumps to inflate this tent here because all the air is going in through the one inflation port. So you don't get a break between pumping up different sections. I'm up to about 100 strokes of this at the moment. It's been a bit over a minute, but a few more minutes and the tent will be as good as set up. It's a good idea if you want. You can get a 12 volt pump that'll do this for you automatically. Being a single port inflation, you could plug your 12 volt pump in there, go and do whatever you want, have a drink, let the tent inflate by itself, and there's absolutely no effort at all. Now you may find partway through inflation, I'm up to about 6 psi, and there's a fair bit of air inside the poles at the moment, but he just needs a little bit of help to stand up. So you might just need to give it a little bit of a helping hand, jump inside and just invert some of these poles just to help it get into its upright position. If you can't coax it up by pulling the poles, the other option is to grab one of the end guy ropes here. Give this a nice firm pull. It may even pop up by itself, and it has popped up by itself. So just put this in place, and that's going to hold it in place while you put the last bit of air in. I'm sitting at about 7 psi here now. I'm going to go to about 8 today because it's a warmish day. You might find that as the psi gets up higher, it's harder to push and pull. You can flick this across to single action, which makes this upstroke much easier, and you can just use your body weight to push down on the pump. Just get the last bit of air in. So I'm just going to go until I get to 8, and that'll be the air or the inflation all done. So that's at 8 psi roughly there. Now there is a little sort of blow off valve here which will kick in when it reaches about 9 psi. You'll hear a little hiss. Not as important. I mean, these air poles are tested up to about 35 psi, so well within excess of what these can pump it to anyway, but it does give you an audible indication that you've reached the psi without having to watch the gauge, I suppose. So I'm happy with where that's inflated to now. We can remove the pump from the valve because of the one-way valve inside there. We can take that off, no air escapes, screw that on, and that's the tent sort of all erect. All I need to do now is go around the base and put all the pegs in around the base, adjust the ones I've already put in, stretch the awning out the front here and peg the base in. And then I've got these 2 guy ropes at the front and back, 2 here, 2 at the rear. Put them in place, that gives it a bit of stability. That's the tent as good as set up. One more thing we want to do is grab a little aluminium pole here and just put the sections together. It's shot corded, so put them together like this, just gently. You don't want to let them snap together. Put them together so that they're all positively seated all the way in. And that holds this sort of weather protected awning out over the door here. So to set that up, feed this through the sleeve above the door here, push it through. And then this fits into these little tabs here that are anchored against the tent. So if I put one end of the pole in here, the pole will then flex. We come around to the other side, flex it a little bit, and feed the other ends. Might just need to feed this fabric all the way through to make sure it's got enough flex in it. And the other end can then sit, it's a little bit firm, sit in this section here. And that then sits nice and firm out here, create this weather protected awning. Last few touches to set up are the vents at the rear here. Peg this out just to allow low level ventilation. There's a mesh panel up underneath there. And at the rear of the tent, same deal. This side here, there's a peg point here and a peg point here that pulls this fabric out a little bit to allow ventilation at the rear. And you've also got this window here that you can either set up zipped closed like this for full storm protection, or zip it open and secure it at the top. There's toggles at the top here, so you can roll this up and then you've got a big mesh panel here. Last thing I mentioned are the guy ropes. Now you do need these guy ropes in place for stability across the length of the tent. There are guy ropes all over the tent. So we've got these here, dual anchor points on here. There's some across the back. There's 1, 2, 3, there's 5 down this side of the tent here. If you want your tent to not flap around too much, put these in place and you're going to create a really sturdy shelter that's not going to move in the wind. But apart from the guy rope, the two at each end, you don't have to use these. These air poles are really forgiving in the wind, and if it does happen that it sort of collapses down, they just bounce back into place. And I'm even going to put a bit of muscle into this to collapse that down at the moment. So only use these if it's really windy and you want to stop your tent flapping around too much. Other than that, the tent as it is now is all set up and ready to go. Pack up is even easier than set up. First thing we need to remember when we're packing the tent up is to take this pole out. It's not going to roll up with that in place. So remove this first, and then before we pull the pegs out, we can let all the air out of the poles, and we don't do that through our inflate valve, which is this one here. We can leave that done up. We can undo it if we want, but these are all the deflate valves. So we've got 5 of those, one here, one at the front. So to let this down now while it's still pegged out, I'm going to flick these around to open. Air's going to rush out of this, and this is going to collapse down bit by bit. I'm going to undo this valve as well, just to let the air out nice and easy while I'm trying to roll the tent up. So from this point, we can go around the edge, pull all of the pegs out from the base, and then if we want, we can take our shoes off and walk on the tent a bit just to squeeze the air out towards these valves here. What I'm going to do though, because I don't want to take my shoes off, is I'm kind of going to fold it up and I'm going to roll from that side across this way to squeeze the air out as we go. See how easily I can get it back in the bag that way. So I've kind of thrown the awning over here, try and lay it as flat as you can. Also important, probably good to leave some of the interior door open so air can escape. Now my valves are on that side of the tent, so I'm going to start to try and roll from this side. We'll sort of fold, I'll fold it in thirds or fourths or whatever the length of the bag is, to push the air that side towards the air release valves. So as I've folded this, I've just squeezed, trying to get all the air out of the poles as I can. Feels pretty good to me. So now I'll grab the poles, the pump, and we'll roll it all up inside. I've got the pump here now. I've removed the hose from the pump so it sits nice and flat. The pegs and the awning poles here. Now, it can be easier to roll this up the first time. I've been told it's easier to roll it up the first time without the pump and then put the pump back in afterwards. I've also been told by one of our Zempire friends that you can do roly-poly up and down here to squeeze all the air out if you like. I'm just going to stick with the hard way to do it to show that it'll still go back in the bag even if you're not following the easiest route. So I'm going to fold it up like this with everything bunched up in here, roll this up as tight as I can, and we'll see how easily it goes back in the bag like this. Now I've rolled this twice, I unrolled it and rolled it again just to squeeze a bit more air out. I'll put the straps around it and hopefully we can get it back in the bag. I've got it rolled up. It's quite a lumpy unit, but it's not long, which makes it easy to fit into a vehicle. But these bags are oversized, so fitting it back in is nice and easy. And we've got further component straps on these bags as well, so you can really wrench it down. It's got some bit of air inside there at the moment. You can really wrench it down to be as compact as you can inside your vehicle. Got these compression straps on the outside of the bag here too, to really wrench it nice and firm. Now, bearing in mind, I'll get that back in the bag pretty easily. There's probably a better way to pack it up by walking on the poles, squeezing all the air out, or doing a roll without the pump inside to start with to make it smaller. So there's ways to make that smaller. I probably did it the hard way around, but I got it back in the bag really easily. That is the Zempire Pro TL V2 tent from Zempire. An awesome family camping tent. Sets up really easy. You get a whole lot of tent for this package here. Check them out online at snowies.com.au.